Welcome to Speak Easy Doctors, where we talk about life and how to navigate it with a little more communication. I'm Dr. J.
And I'm Dr. D. We're two BFFs with PhDs in communication, but most importantly, we're human beings figuring things out just like you.
From everyday conversations to life's bigger moments, we're here to explore how words shape our views, experiences, and relationships.
No scripts, no lectures, just honest conversations about life and speaking easier.
So, let's dive in. This is Speak Easy Doctors.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing shared here is intended as medical or mental health advice. One of the hosts is a licensed counselor, but the conversation should not replace professional care or therapy. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for any personal concerns. Both hosts are PhDs in communication, and our goal in this podcast is to inform and inspire, not to diagnose or treat. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Speakeasy Doctors. It has been a minute, Dr. J.
It has, Dr. D. I know we took some time off for the holidays and whatnot.
Yeah,
Yes.
and even though there's an upcoming holiday in a couple of days, Christmas is coming. Today is the 22nd as we're recording it. But we just wanted to do one more episode right before 2026.
And we are going to record 127 more episodes before New Year's Day.
In our minds, we're going to record it, but in reality, It's not happening. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I have all my animals around me. And right when we started recording, now one's sitting on my lap.
That's what animals do. That's good. That means they feel safe with you.
I guess so, but they're in the way. All right. So how have you been?
I've been good. How about you?
It's been a busy holiday season, I think, for me. A lot of getting together with people, a lot more this year than usual. All started in October. And this year I had made a promise to myself to foster more connection and to be there for people as much as I can. A lot of that being as I graduated from my mental health program, I thought, wow, how much do I self-isolate? And how much did I, for the last 2 years as I finished my program, not reach out to people or see what's been going on in life? So yeah, this end of the year has been a lot of me making an effort to reach out and be a part of everyone's lives.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because my wife and I, usually we say no to Christmas parties, but we've been going more over the past week or two. We've been engaging. Our neighbor invited us to a Christmas party the other week, and sometimes we say no, but we said no. We're going to attend this year.
Do you notice a difference in your mood or anything because of this more interaction?
I do. I think just understanding people's stories a little bit more. I mean, even if they're surface level, I think that it affects people. Yeah, it affects me in a positive way, in a good way. So yeah, I do notice that. How about you?
I definitely don't know how to meet things in the middle, so I think I might have overdone it. I'll go out and have fun, and then I come home super exhausted, but I've been saying yes to too many things maybe at the very end of the year, to the point where I'm like not 100% present all the time. So in some way, I
you
think
can't
maybe
go from saying no all the time, just saying yes all the time.
Yeah. We got to find a middle ground.
Exactly. I mean, I'm assuming you can eventually get to that point, but you can't just start out right out the gate. Hey, I'm going to go everywhere. So, but yes, this small talk might seem like there's no purpose behind it, but there is in fact a purpose why we're talking about engaging with other people. And why is that, Dr. D?
Well, we're going to talk about a well-known sociologist named Robert Putnam. And he coined the term bowling alone. Do you remember that term?
I do. Yeah, I remember reading that book.
What do you know about bowling alone? And then I can talk about what I know.
Okay, well, I remember reading it. I think it was in 2001, and I know the book was released in 2000. And it's just talking about how people have become more comfortable or more familiar with staying at home and not engaging with their neighbors or not engaging with other people. And it's interesting that he wrote book 20 years before COVID, when everyone was forced to isolate. He was saying that was becoming more and more the trend. People isolating people no longer. He uses the term bowling or the act of bowling because it's 20, 30, 40 years ago, everyone was going to bowling leagues or PTA meetings or going to community centers to engage with one another. And we've seen a shift with that. And I know he talks about that shift happening, I think it was post World War II, when people are moving out to the suburbs, becoming more displaced, becoming more comfortable with being at home because the advent of radio and television and eventually the internet provided so much home entertainment that people no longer needed to look to their neighbors or friends to have this kind of entertainment.
Yeah, and just to be specific, I'll look at my show notes here. So this is not
Sure.
coming from pure brilliant memory, but the book started in, you were very close, 2000. It was written, Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community. And it's really about the concept or the decline of social capital. Now, when we say social capital, the core idea is that we are increasingly disconnected from each other, meaning we're not engaging in activities. Like back in the day, they used to have bowling leagues, but now you would see more people back in that time bowling by themselves. So not necessarily joining a league. It just became a metaphor for civic engagement. But just to define social capital a little bit, it's referring to a few variables here. It's networks, norms, and trust, all situated with relationship. And basically, it enables individuals to work together effectively. So, a strong social capital would support things like community engagement, participation in civic engagement, physical and mental health, trust and cooperation. And all of these different variables, joining the PTA, unions, clubs, religious participation, even political engagement, and also socializing with friends and neighbors, those are ways to build a communal life, aka social capital. And so back in 2000s, we saw decline due to a number of different factors, just like you said, television and radio. But today, I would even say social media, TikTok, all of those media consumption products do also contribute to this decline in social capital, in my opinion, of course.
Your
What do you
opinion is
think?
very valid. No, yeah, I would definitely say that is the case. And it's interesting too, because when people do go out, it feels like there's kind of a different reason, a different people have a tendency, I think, to go out to speak versus to listen. Oftentimes, even if we see people engaging with other people, oftentimes it's to let people know how they're doing, like, hey, this is how I'm doing versus listening to one another. I think maybe social media has impacted the way that people interact with one another. So, and people much more comfortable talking about their own belief system rather than listening and engaging because I think in some ways that might be a lost art, the act of listening, this active listening that we're taught about that's so important to interpersonal communication. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen that at all.
I love that you said the word lost art, which I hope is not true that it's a lost art. But I think that the divisiveness, the era and the culture of divisiveness has increased over time. I would even go to argue, like back in the 2000s, when we say television and radio separated us, I would also say that for a lot of us, because it wasn't where we had streaming services in the early 2000s or late 1990s, we had to watch what we had to watch the night of, right? Or the
Right.
movies all came out at a certain time in the movie theaters. So, and we didn't have Netflix to play it after the movie theater phase, right? So, in a way, we all had to go to the movies or we all had to watch a show at the same time, and it became a form of connection. Like looking back in my life, it was a form of connection, like what happened on this show? What happened on Grey's Anatomy? What did you think about it? It was happening back then. Whereas today, we all have the opportunity to watch these shows, but we watch it at different times.
And I don't think it's just watching different shows at different times. There's a saturation of media with the streaming
Mhm.
services. There's so many different shows out there. Like you said, when I was in high school, Friday morning, everyone had watched Seinfeld and Friends. We all knew what happened. But when I ask my students what shows they're watching, I'll get 30 different answers
Mm-hmm.
because there's not that there's just so many streaming services, but there's so many different shows, so many different genres. There's not one or two movies or TV shows that stand out. It could be anything at one particular time.
And I think there's good and bad to this, right? On
Sure.
the one hand, when media had that much attention and they could direct and frame a certain show at a certain time, there was a lot more power in that. But now I think for the media companies, I think there was a lot more power in that. Now it's actually instead of social capital that they're grabbing attention from, it's going to be attention capital, right? It's the need
Right.
to grab as much attention because now attention is the marketplace. In my just it's just a difference in the modern day. Like, how do I get you to watch us versus the 200 other choices you have at this point in time that is around you? And because of that, I think that, you know, and I'm going deeper into personal individual preference, but because of that, I think people don't know how to watch things that go against their beliefs or things that go against their perspectives because now the capital is what will I watch? And honestly, I'd prefer to watch something that I enjoy than something that will challenge me.
Right. And I think, and this is getting back to what was it, 190 years ago, the reinforcement theory. Uh, yeah, people watch things that reinforce their ideologies versus, like you said, things that challenge. So and it's very easy to do that now because regardless of what you believe, there's channels on YouTube or TikTok that offer you everything that you believe in. So you're comfortable with that. And if you're not
I
going at, yeah, and talking to other people, then you really don't face that very often. Those
And this
challenges.
is where I get back to social capital and Robert Putnam, because I think one thing that we can talk about is that if we can have community engagement and, you know, participation in different groups, I think that means to us on some unconscious level, it is a risk. Is a risk in a world where we might perceive this interaction as threatening to our own ideals now, which is sad and scary because that wasn't necessarily um, I don't think that was necessarily a thing we thought about in the 2000s. Like, it was just a must do. I must go out there and be a part of the community. Self isolation, I think, was a little bit more of the non norm, I guess. And well, in my life anyway, I didn't see my family isolating or my friends isolating. We all went to the mall. We all hung out together. It's almost a requirement for life, but it's no longer a requirement for life now.
Right. And I remember in the 90s when Starbucks became huge, you would go there and you would sit down and you weren't ordering your coffee online and going in, not talking to anyone, not talking to the barista, and just picking it up because your name was printed on it. You would go, you would talk to people, you would sit down. And that culture, I think, has shifted a lot. People are now just ordering online and I just want
Mhm.
to get in and get out. Same with the grocery store, same with other areas of shopping. Shopping malls, like you mentioned, are closing down now. So, yeah.
I feel so much pain for the younger generation because it's not like they chose that. I feel as
Right.
though we might have socially and culturally, and also through circumstance like the pandemic, we created a whole system. We've touched upon the system. Everything is more digital. In fact, the system of reaching out to strangers or talking to strangers, always a bad idea if they're suspect, right? But even talking to someone who might just be a cashier is anxiety inducing for so many people. And it's all about how we individually perceive risk and threat in our environment. And the fact that there is a lot more anxiety out there means that we're perceiving our own environment in general as risky. And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, anytime you step out your front door, there is a sense of risk. There is a sense of that safety is no longer there. Where I think, 20, 30 years ago, you felt safe walking out. And I'm not talking physically feeling like you're going to be harmed in a physical way, but there's a safety that, oh, am I going to say something offensive or am I going to be canceled or something like that going to happen? Versus people really didn't think about that. Even 10 years ago, I don't think it was, yeah.
Yeah. So when do you think the decline or Let's start with the when. When do you think the decline started to happen or became? We can say in the 2000s with Robert Putnam, but maybe for us in the modern day, this particular switch, was there a switch that created it, or was this a slow decline? So what do you think happened there, and when did it happen?
To me, it feels like it was a slow decline. I don't know if I can point to one event or one year where everything just shifted. Even with the pandemic with COVID, yeah, it was a shift, but I think a lot of people saw that coming. Like Putnam, for instance, saw us eventually isolating ourselves and wanting to isolate ourselves, not because we're forced to, but just because that's what we would feel more comfortable doing. Yeah.
I think it was both slow and fast. So I think there was a slow decline maybe in the 2000s, TV, media. We had a
Sure.
period of time where, yeah, we didn't have to go outside to engage as much anymore because we could watch television. And that was happening before the 2000s, obviously.
Do you think you could point to one event or
I'm going to
one?
point to multiple why. This is why I'm saying slow and fast.
Okay.
And this is just from my experience, not necessarily truth, because there's data probably showing prior to these series of events that I'm going to talk about. Social media, Facebook, actually MySpace, probably
2000.
before Facebook. I can't remember those years, but yeah, I think social media first and initially the intention I think was to connect all of us all over the world and create pages and be able to showcase who we are and then connect and share pictures. And then these unintended consequences of fun. Now the bad behaviors get shown on social media, or characteristics where bullies have the opportunity to bully more. So there's a whole bunch of unintended consequence. I'm pretty sure the makers didn't want that to happen, right? And then over time, I think it's the whole, how do we manipulate attention? Like, let's do these ads because this person is interested in this, and we can gather that data from the social media interactions and know that this person is interested in this and blah, blah, blah. So our social media feeds became populated with things that we didn't ask for, ideologies that we didn't ask for, that really skewed towards creating certain ideas. And I'm not going to go in depth about that because a lot of people already out there understand and know that that's happening and have debated all of that. So social media became the thing that made it fast. Even though we were more connected from the comfort of our own homes. And then as time wore on, I think that there was different ways to create platforms online that kind of took away our attention. Right. I think TikTok, the ways that YouTube, creating movies, and then you have the rise of influencers. And as a way of making money, people started to see these, and it's perfectly normal because this is business, right? You start to see opportunities and ways to make money, and people start to dream about how can I be that person. So not only was it just a social media thing that it started out with, it became a how do we grab attention through media? How do we create videos? How do we fine tune the skills that social media started? The branding of an individual versus the branding of corporate America, right? That became even more prevalent. And I think our reality started to become, instead of in the real world, physical world, the material world, going outside, instead of that, going to the movies, going to third spaces, I'll talk a little bit more about third spaces. Our reality became digital without us even knowing it. And that's when I think it started.
And I think to just pointing to that, when we see things online, the way that people interact with one another, there's almost a sense that there's a difficulty in interacting with one another as well. That I know I mentioned lost art earlier, and I think it really is. There's a Reddit sub called Public Freakout, which shows people freaking out over very minute things. And I
Yeah.
think kind of negotiating that interaction of whether my French fries are cold. So now
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to there's a disconnect there. I don't know how to negotiate that because I've been online my whole life, and I've just been seeing influencers or whoever acting out this way because maybe there's not the same kind of consequences that there were. If that social capital is no longer there, you don't really care what other people think anymore.
Well,
Whereas
when I
years ago
say
you
that,
did.
that's when it started. I think
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I'm still trying to conceptualize when it started, but digital reality started. the digital space. And like you said, the consequences of digital space is more comfortable than the consequences of physical space, right? In my opinion, I think, well, in smaller interactions. I also think the consequences now of digital space can be more mentally challenging in that instead of bullying by one person, you're bullied by millions, possibly.
Right.
And so, but there's something more safe for some people being able to interact in the day to day in a digital space versus interacting in a physical space.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, because they're more familiar with the digital space, like you said, it becomes more comfortable. It becomes your reality. Whereas the actual physical space, that's something that's not necessarily, you don't necessarily traverse that space as much as the digital. That becomes your reality. That becomes your identity. That becomes who you are. And you learn how to interact on that space.
And this is just an aside, but I worry about what AI can do now. AI is an area that I think can be the next step of the fast. So, slow, fast, slow, fast. The next step of things changing to make the decline of social capital faster. I think that there's a lot of things there that could happen that we don't know about yet.
Right. And there's a push and pull, there's a tension there because of the First Amendment. We want to be free to say certain things, provided as they're not illegal. So where is that? Can we draw a line there between
Well, I
what's,
mean, I think you and I have seen this happening, and it shocks me sometimes, is that people are no longer saying what exactly they feel inside for fear of retaliation in some way or fear of, for example, being canceled. And honestly, before there was social media, we would just say stuff and then suffer the consequences. Someone didn't like you, they would tell you maybe because this whole discussion no longer didn't live in the digital space where now we have a conversation, it can go viral, and everything that you say can be marked for later use. And now there's a lot more hesitance to share ourselves. In a way, reality in the digital world does not really, I mean, you can argue this, does it really show our actual true perspectives if we're hiding ourselves? I think it might be existing in the extremes that yes, there are people that are showing themselves to a great degree, and then there are those that are sharing themselves very little.
right. And it's also which part of you are you showing? Is it a performance when you show yourself, or is it authentically who you are? Or is it just something
Yeah.
you're doing to gain that social capital, ironically enough, virtually?
Well, yeah, that's what it is. I think now social capital isn't social. Maybe it's attention capital.
It's virtual or it's digital capital or
Digital
both.
attention capital, and what is social capital? Have we declined it so much that we no longer see it as what the prior generations saw it as? I don't know. I'm in my 40s now, so I wonder if I'm outdated.
Yeah,
Social,
I
yeah,
often feel that way when I'm standing in front of a group of 21-year-olds. I feel old and I feel, wow, maybe I am obsolete. I don't know. It's like a Twilight Zone episode. They no
yeah.
longer need me. I think a little old.
I was asked by a young teenager. She asked me, "How do people your age interact? Because we do it all online, right? They do this online thing. They make friends online, Discord, whatever I have no idea because I don't understand all of that." And I said, "Well, we maybe join classes, art classes. We meet people in the community. We try to do things that are, fun for a group, maybe if that's available. You see a lot less of that available. You find people who have things in common and you join their get togethers. That was the ask from me. And that is indicating to me a whole different shift of how people interact because that is the younger generation.
And at the same time, I do see the younger generation, Gen Z, maybe Gen Alpha to some extent, being nostalgic for
Yeah,
a
that's
time when
good.
there wasn't AI. There's a genre called analog horror where it's fictional, but it's meant to seem like it's real. I don't know if I'm explaining that okay. Anyways, there's all these YouTube videos of time travelers, and it makes it seem like it's a real time traveler saying, "Oh, I'm from the year 2087," and in the year 2087, There's no technology as we know it. There's a barter system. You have to go to you're dependent on your neighbor. So you bring a tomato from your garden and get it to your neighbor, and you trade that for a squash from them. If you need food or you need
Yeah.
clothes, you make it yourself, and there's a community. You have to talk to your neighbor if you want to exist. And I
I
just think that's really interesting. Yeah.
I love that. And I also think, like with every generation, we can look at the generation before and try to be different, right? So I know that we lived that, like not the barter system, that's way older than us, but
Yeah.
we lived a time in our childhood when there was not that digital interaction. We watched it in our generation. We watched this whole thing grow and how digital reality became a split from physical reality. And now there's this navigation and we see mental health issues and the anxious generation. That's one book I really recommend people reading about and how we are facilitating. It's not that this whole younger generation is just anxious and not tough, but we've got to start looking at the environment that we created for them to create the anxiety and the easy access to things and not having something to have a commonality. And I'm not saying we should go back to a time where we're all watching Grey's Anatomy at the same time. What I'm saying is, where is it? How can we change? I want to call to action to all of us older generation, boomers, Generation X, even elder millennials. Get our younger generation to know what that was like, to understand that the digital reality is a fragment, a substrate of physical reality, not the primary reality that they have to live. Because they want that. If they're seeking for a time where we have bartering systems and a time of otherness and what they have right now, we're the ones that know what that look like.
And then it's difficult, I think, to interact with people. I mean, I know I've mentioned this before. I'm neurodivergent, so I had to learn how to engage in small talk. And I remember sitting there with my therapist, and we'd go outside, and she'd say, "Oh, go ask someone what time it is or what time the bus comes," because it's not easy to learn. And I can only imagine had I been raised in this environment where you don't need to ask anyone anything because everything's online, everything's on an app. I can't imagine how difficult it must be for Gen Alpha right now going through that. It's something that I think is valuable to know how to engage with people and how to start conversations, how to keep them going.
Ultimately, this what I call generation wars, like my generation's better than your generation. I
X is the best generation, though. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I might agree with you on that, but not publicly. But I will tell you, I think that the older generation needs to take ownership for why the younger generation is different to some degree. The younger generation always can see what went wrong better than we can. And my hope is that they take what went wrong and they think of some other way to make it better. And this time around, this is the first generation that makes less money than us, that doesn't have as much opportunity. That is not their fault. We have provided them with ideas and a roadmap and all of those things. But this generation, all of the wealth has pivoted to us, to the older generation. And it's not being shared with this younger generation. And then we're telling them, oh, they're this and they're that. No, the problem of the next generation is always the problem of the older generation. And that's just where I'm coming from. I think I get irritated when older generations say, well, back in my day, we were these kind of people. I was like, would you be those kind of people in this modern day? I'm not sure.
Well, I remember when I was young, older people would always tell me that. What was wrong with my generation? So
Yeah.
isn't that just what generations do? Isn't that just par for the course? That
Yeah, it
older
could be
generations are going to yell at you?
It could be par for the course, but let's acknowledge that they're part of the problem, right? I will acknowledge our generation is part of the problem, but I think that we can change that perspective so we can help the younger ones.
Our
I mean,
generation is perfect. There's nothing wrong with our generation.
here's one example. Why is education the first thing that gets cut money-wise? One of the first things that get cut. I don't understand that.
Maybe it's
It's
not as
because
lucrative a business. It's not
I
making
guess
enough money.
not. It's just maybe the culture. But when we talk about this, I mean, this is what I call social capital and the decline of social capital. This is this is a responsibility for all of us. It's not just okay, hey, the social media is doing this. I think it's also, what are we doing in the material world? Well, if education is not strong in its social capital, if there's a lot less small businesses out there where people can come to, if the libraries are not funded so people can come look at books, and that's a place where social capital can be grown, where there's free community centers. If there's not a place for people to congregate without paying $200 an hour, do you know what I'm saying? Like, oh,
Yeah,
we can only
I
have
do.
this space, so you could do a party, and that party is $200. Like, if there's not places like this, then what do we have other than the digital world?
So is this, and I know we're not going to find a solution here today,
No,
but
I don't think, yeah.
if there were in a perfect world, what would you see um,
Oh
as
my
the
gosh.
solution to having people, especially younger people, engage with one another?
I heard this idea. I can't even recall who said it, so I'm sorry that I'm not going to be able to cite it. But you know how people have apps to date, like
Yeah,
each other? Yeah, swipe
sure.
left, swipe right. I think that app should also create spaces where people actually meet in person. Like, okay, swipe left if you like this person, and they can meet at this get together, like a meetup, or a speed dating. So I think that we should incorporate what I call third spaces into digital ideas. That would be we can't get rid of the digital world. That's obvious. We are now a
We
digital
could.
community. No, I don't want to. I
No,
actually don't want to. I think there's good in it. There's some good in it.
sure, of
But
course,
what I
yeah.
want to do is, like, when I say third spaces, it's these spaces outside of work and school that we can all meet. Coffee shops, libraries, malls, bars. How many 20-year-olds go to bars? Like, what are these places and what they can be? We could be more creative with them. Taking the digital application and extending it into a more physical world is a way we can meet in the middle.
It's funny too, you mentioned bars. I was reading an article the other day that Gen Zers, they drink the least among by any generation. So they go to bars very, very infrequently, and they're not even having parties at home to drink.
So change that, right? Like, instead of bars with drinks, remember they used to have oxygen bars?
That's a very
I
Los
don't know.
Angeles thing.
I'm sorry. I don't know for the other parts of the world, but I remember those oxygen bars. They were primarily about drinking. You can make
Yeah.
game bars, like, where you have, healthy drinks and board games. I think this is the part where humans, not digital, not computers, humans are so good at this. We are so good at creating from the others. And this is our opportunity to make that third space happen in a way that can integrate the digital space, I think.
It's interesting you mentioned that too, because yeah, we can create so many realities, and sometimes those are positive, sometimes those are negative.
Yeah.
And they have so much power, those narratives we have that we hold. So, and I guess I'm thinking maybe the government regulates that all Gen Zers have to have a house party twice a week and drink with one another, and the consequence is execution if you do not follow through. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't want government involved in anything, to be honest.
Mandatory fun? No?
I think the people can do this without the government's help, but
I see.
it's just an opinion. I believe in the people more than I believe in our government
Maybe the
sometimes.
government can start I don't know, some sort of organization or committee. What would it be called? The Mandatory Fund Committee, where the government it goes to every house and ensures that people are having fun.
Why, the whole point that I love about America is freedom.
I'm just joking.
I don't know if I'm definitely not on board with government doing anything.
If you're not smoking marijuana, you get fined.
We just want a little more fun for the next generation. That's all. We want you to feel safe enough to do so, but acknowledge that we have created a world, a digital world and a physical reality that doesn't support that nostalgia that they want to experience. That we actually got to experience, but we're not showing them how to even incorporate in their lives to some degree.
So
And
the
I'm not
war will
saying
teach
that's
us.
everyone. Yeah, I'm not saying that's everyone. I'm just saying in general, guess what? Like, you can look outside and you can see a decline of people participating and small businesses closing, you know? And that's not how we want to be. We want social capital to be some new form that is better. Let me ask you this. What do you see as an ideal situation? And it could be
I don't
about
know.
anything we talked about. It could be like how I talked about merging the digital and physical somehow, some way. But what do you think? What's a way we can change that?
I'm thinking in black and white. So I'm thinking there has to be some sort of regulation where people are forced to engage with one another. I know that's not, I value freedom as well, just as much as anyone else in America.
Well, okay, I want to play with that a little bit. I don't think it's from my perspective at this moment, I wouldn't want that. But the forced thing, what could it be?
I think on a very small level, just getting to know your neighbors, getting to know people around you. I don't think that happens as often as it should. Yeah. And I'm trying to think when you go out, so it's interacting with people. I'm trying to think of how to do it without having it be regulated because people
Yeah.
ultimately have to want to do that. And I think that's the issue. There's no
That's the
motivation.
problem. And see, I think the word forced makes it hard to implement, right? If it's forced,
Exactly.
just if anybody tells me to do anything, even though I'm happy to do it, if they tell me to do it, I might rebel. So what I'm thinking you're thinking is that maybe to have other motivations other than force, which is, I don't know, I think that maybe we should put more emphasis on social capital, is what you're saying. Maybe
Right. But how do
people,
we do that?
yeah, how do we help people understand that you working through your anxiety, for example, and reaching out to others and being a part of community is actually beneficial to you? How do we do that?
Maybe it's just people need to understand that we're all just having a human experience. We want that safety and we all want to feel valued. We want to feel like we're a part of something. Regardless of how far we are into the virtual or digital world, nothing can replace having that human interaction. And maybe just having more narratives like that out in the world, maybe that would help younger people see that, well, okay, it's not so scary, it's not so foreign, and it's something that we can actually have today, despite all of the technological advancements with AI or whatnot. So
I love that. I think that that is a very, very interesting and important answer to the problem, to a solution to the problem. I think that we need to foster a sense that human connection will always override digital connection, robotic connection, or whatever that digital world will be or has been. Sitting down with somebody at a coffee shop will always be qualitatively different and absolutely more beneficial to us than sitting down in a coffee shop in front of a computer.
And it's really like a muscle. You need to work out that muscle because the first time you sit down with someone, it's going to be awkward, especially if you haven't. It's not going to feel, it's going to challenge you. It's not going to feel, you're not going to feel good about it, in other words. But the more you do it, the better you're going to feel. Yeah, it's just like training for a race, I suppose, or anything, like for that matter. The more you do it, the better it'll feel. Like, I think just people understanding that having those human connections physiologically and emotionally, it'll make you a better person.
Yeah.
You'll feel better. Yeah, I think you and I can both agree. But for instance, after I talked to, I'd mentioned this very several times before. After I talked to you, um, I feel very uplifted, and I don't get that from some going on social media or watching a video on YouTube, or it's something that can't be replaced.
Yes, everyone. James and I still talk on the phone. We
Yes,
don't
exactly.
text. We actually talk on the phone.
Right.
Well, I think this is a good way to end it. I think talking about the importance of knowing that human connection is more, I mean, so much more important than we realize. We may take it for granted. We may prioritize the digital connection, but I would just want everyone to think about, like you said, hanging out with someone that you've known or you care about and seeing the difference. Be aware of the difference between that and scrolling through your social media. And I think you'll have your answer on how important social capital in the physical world is versus social capital and attention in the digital world.
And I think because the digital world has overtaken our lives so much, people might not know how to interact. So people out there might feel you might face some anger, or people that don't agree with you, they might say things. But I think ultimately people need to understand they're valued as a person. And I think it's just
Hmm.
people might not know how to say that or might not know how to tell you that you are valued. and as an individual. Just keep that in mind, and as you're moving forward.
I love it. Well, we are going to end this year on a high note and a kind note. Thank you all for listening to us. I mean, this is our first season. It has been such a pleasure to be able to share some of our thoughts. We ask that you share it with people who also might enjoy what we have to say. Just offline, I've been talking to a lot of people and they do enjoy our podcast, and that makes us feel like that's really worth it and that we're able to be ourselves and take what we know and give it to others. I just want everyone to have a very happy holiday season and to bring in the new year fresh and new and think about the things that you want to do out there, and I hope that everything works out well for y'all, and we will see you next year.